Hey, everybody, and welcome back to Crunching Your Growth. I'm your host, Phil Masiello, and over the years, I've seen a lot of brands try to fake it with flashy marketing while their actual products just fall apart. Today, we're talking about a company that did the exact opposite. Back in the 90s, the culture shifted. Basic t-shirts went from being underwear to being the main event. It was driven a lot by hip hop and the skate culture, but the big apparel companies completely missed the memo and kept pushing, cheap t-shirts. That's when Shaka Wear stepped in, created the max heavyweight, and completely took over the market by delivering a better, longer lasting product. My guest today is Eugene Park, CEO of Shaka Wear. Eugene isn't just a fashion guy, he's an operations and supply chain powerhouse. He's got a Harvard degree, UChicago MBA, spent over a decade building high performance manufacturing pipelines around the globe, navigating complex international regulations to keep Shaka Wear at the top of the streetwear food chain. So we're going to cut through the BS today, talk about what it actually takes to scale a premium product globally. If anybody out there is doing fashion, has done fashion, you know how difficult it can be. And I think that he's made it look easy, even though it's not easy, but he's done a tremendous job. So Eugene, let's bring him in. Thank you for taking the time to come on the show and share with us today. I really appreciate it. And, thanks for being here.
Hey Phil, thanks for having me. I'm excited to get to talk to the audience here, and I'm an open book. So let's get things started.
Why don't you why don't you take us back, if you can, to sort of the beginning? You obviously you're how you grew up, what you did, got into Harvard, getting to Chicago, and then building the brand.
Well, yeah. So my path forward wasn't as linear as most people like to think. In fact, when I was growing up, we grew up on the wrong side of the tracks. And we grew up, I'm not going to mention where, but we grew up in a rough neighborhood. And I was exposed to a lot of things that kids shouldn't be exposed to. And somehow, my parents immigrated from Korea, worked extremely hard. And to this day, they still have trouble speaking English. And
Hmm.
so they came with nothing. It's kind of like the rags to riches story. I know it gets kind of old. And then I adopted that a little bit, and I saw them firsthand. In fact, I always tell my mom and dad, I say, you can take away everything. Take away the net worth, take away with the whole thing. I had the blueprint, and I was fortunate enough to be able to witness certain things, starting businesses, failing multiple times, and in the earlier years, when we started this thing here, it wasn't smooth sailing, and we can get into it a little bit later. But all is to say is it's We started a family-owned business still, and we've been able to kind of scale this thing, not without hard times, and we kind of got lucky in that the fashion is cyclical, and you just have to stay ready. And so we just peaked at the right time. I mean, we're not a new company, but we act like a startup. And so where I think we excelled is, one, just putting our boots to the ground. It wasn't sexy. It wasn't all glamour, and it's just whatever people think. It was real hard work. And I remember when we first started this thing here, is that when my father, we didn't even have a sample shirt. Most people would have a sample shirt at least to sell. We had a flyer. We didn't have any inventory. We had a flyer. And so he would go to every single store, get turned down multiple times, and it kind of grew organically that way. I mean, I didn't, when you say Harvard degree, I did Harvard the backward way. In high school, I was the part where we made the top half possible. And so it's not the polished version of me. And I even I'm hesitant to say that is not what it was back then. In fact, I'm still learning and I'm still growing. And even people like you, Phil, I'm learning all day long from people like you. So we just hit that trend, and we're at a tipping point right now where we are the talk of the industry. Everybody's copying us on social. Everybody's mocking our shirts, and just people can't replicate it.
Yeah. Now, the reason I started this show 5 years ago was because I was mentoring entrepreneurs at some of the universities, and like you, I didn't come up easy, but it was a lot of work. I failed multiple times at businesses, hit on some good ones, and I started mentoring. And one of the things I recognized was some of the younger entrepreneurs coming up were getting just bad information from YouTube and social media, making it look like it was easy. Oh, I started this business on a Friday. By Monday, I was a millionaire. And it just doesn't work that way. And like you said, hey, man, this has been hard work. We created something that's really powerful, but it wasn't easy. It was hard work. And that's sort of the message that we're always trying to get across on this show to people, is that it's not going to be easy. It's not going to be something that you're going to start a side gig on Monday and, within a month, like the Inc. magazine articles, oh, Bob started a side gig on Monday and, within a month he was making $10,000 a day. I've never met I've interviewed over, almost 1,000 entrepreneurs and that started businesses, founded businesses. I've never heard one of them say, "Oh, it was simple." Oh, we did it, and it was a hockey stick, and it was great. There's the closest we came was a guy named Joe Rothley, who created a product called Greenies, which is a pet product, and it's
Yep.
sold, all around. And he did it. He started it and founded it, and worked for 4 years before it became a hockey stick. So it wasn't a hockey stick overnight. And then obviously he exited to Mars. So. But exactly what you're talking about. So yeah, I would like to get into sort of the path and what you guys did and your failures and how you overcame them and how you kept going.
Yeah. To your point, and I'm guilty of this, of taking a bite out of that greenie. It doesn't taste good, by the way. Uh, but yeah, wonderful story there too, on that background. But yeah, as you stated, I mean, there are bumps and this road here of this entrepreneur thing, and when I used to hear about these things from my mentors now, is it's not for everybody,
Right.
and I'm thinking, why not? How come I can't just start a business? You can, if you're willing to endure the pain long enough. And so the thing with us, our companies, I remember there are times, I mean, you have stressors of, can you make payroll? I mean, week to week, you're talking about making payroll. We had at one point, there's a time where we almost didn't make it around 3 times, and I vividly remember those times where there's a supply chain defect, there's a wrong call that I made, which cost the company millions of dollars. And that's, by the way, this road to hard knocks is far more valuable than any Harvard, any Chicago, any Wharton degree can ever teach you. And so to get in the trenches and actually start doing it is nothing can replace that.
Sure.
So when one of the times when we order merchandise, at that time we were manufacturing out of China, and we still do quite a bit of business there on the outerwear, but we got shipped junk. So we wired. Think about this. At that, we don't have any money. We wired out the last $100,000. We get a shipment in, and it's a bunch of recycled junk. And so those are things that, and it's like, what do we do next? How do we pay the rent? How do we keep the lights on? How do we keep people employed? And we had orders there, thank God, but how do we fulfill that? And so these little gotchas, and it happens time and time again. It's not like most people think, oh, once you hit $100 million, or once you hit $10 million, it's going to go away. It never goes
It
away.
never goes
It
away.
never. It's just bigger scale problems, and yeah, we had to learn it the hard way. I think that I remember a time where, um, it's the most frustrating thing when you have orders and you cannot fulfill them.
Yeah.
And we shipped out an order, a large order, to a customer, and we got charged back because it came in defect. And so, how do you recover from that? And we're putting all our personal savings, selling the house, not even refining, selling the house, selling everything, selling the assets, and try to keep this up afloat, and thinking, just wondering and hoping, are we going to make it the next day? Not even the next month. Are we going to make it the next day? And at a certain point, when Phil, I watched some of your guests here. Yes, everybody, you have to work hard. That's a non-negotiable. But then that's coupled with a little bit of magic dust, which I call luck.
Yeah.
But you have to be ready for that luck, and you don't know when it's coming. So we got a little bit lucky. I'm not going to be, I learned my lesson. I'm not arrogant to say that, oh, I did it, my team did it, our company's far superior. We had a lot of lucky moments, and we just capitalized on those. So yeah, it's manufacturing to we if you see behind me, there's a yarn cone there. So we spin the yarn, knit the yarn, dye the yarn, cut and sew. So we're the full vertical thing. And I'll tell you a funny story, because when we first started, they go, "Oh, there's a dye house." It's like dyeing, like as in garment
Yeah.
dyeing. Uh, my dad thought that people died over there. Like, are you killing people? So this is how you gotta understand. This is how stupid, for the lack of a better term, this is how dumb we were. And we just had to figure things out of what sewing machines, how to create garments, how do you match a certain weight, the look and feel of it, all the way from the logistics. And yeah, it's been a long journey.
Yeah. We were talking before the show, and I told you that, you know, I've had a couple of successes in my life, but I've had several failures, and a couple of the failures were in the fashion world. It's just not something I should be in, and there are so many components to it, between the design element, then you've got to make the patterns, then you've got to do the cut and sew, then you've got to do you got to pick your fabrics and all these things, and then if you're manufacturing overseas, you're talking about an extreme timeline, and
Yeah.
then bringing the product in on a boat is another couple of months of travel, and then you've got all these pieces, and everybody I know who's good at it is looking out 16, 18 months ahead, and I just and for me, I just don't have that skill set. It didn't work out for me. But I respect anybody who's in the fashion business, because it's just a total business that has so many different supply chain components to it. Like, I'm in the consumer product business. You get the product designed, you go and you get a manufacturer, you bring it in. You're not, and then you can sell it right away, and it's not really going to change. If you're bringing in a razor is going to be a razor. You can do refinements to it, but it's not like you have to change the color every season, or you have to think about fabric every season, or any of that. So it's a very, very difficult business with a lot of moving parts that you have to manage on a continual basis, or, like you said, you can wind up upside down financially for a period of time. And how do you recover from that?
Yeah, that's an excellent point. And every single sector of business has their little nuances. And
Sure.
so, even with us, is, yeah, you're right. I mean, fashion changes a lot. Thank God I have a good team. My brother heads, who's the president of sales and marketing. He heads the fashion. So we'll go over certain products, and certain products and newsflash, with every single fashion company, not 100% of the items hit. It
No.
just doesn't work that way. In fact, I would say it's like the 80-20 rule. 20% will be your top movers. For us, at that time period, before we became more of a full fashion brand, a streetwear brand, it was just a singular shirt.
Yeah.
So we created a single white T-shirt. And then most people don't even know this, is uh, there are different yarn thread counts. That's why shirts feel a little bit different.
Sure.
There's different blends out there. There's different treatments. And so it is complex, in that even the dye chemicals, we have to be very cognizant on what we're using. Is it doesn't come out per batch, per lot, as we say, as and what the audience needs to understand is if you go to a store and you take a black shirt and put it against another black shirt in the right lighting, no two black shirts are identical. In fact, there are shades, and most people don't even know this. Actually, it'll come out in the white part of it. And I'll give you another one here is if you look at a white shirt and if you look really closely, it's either like a blue tint, a yellow tint, or a red tint. So if you look, it's not just pure white. I'm not a chemist, but I have factors that do that. But it is an art form for
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah. Yeah, no question. And then on top of that, you've got all the different sizes. And like what you said is sometimes not everything hits. And sometimes sizes become an issue. You've got to have the full array of sizes, but you may sell, just in the large, extra large, medium, whatever. And then you're stuck with all these small, extra smalls or double XLs or whatever. And, what do you do with that? So you're working with all these different pieces. And then the other thing about the fashion side, we did it on women's fashion. The other piece was what we learned the hard way was that when you're selling certain products like jeans, for example, women will buy 3 or 4 different sizes because they're not sure about which size is going to fit them. And then they're going to return the 3 that don't fit them. And so you've got this massive return system that you've got to manage because the product's not bad. It just didn't fit the size that she wanted because everything doesn't fit the exact same way for every single person who's every single size. So it's a very complex business.
Oh yeah, yeah. Just speaking of the sizing is everything, and that's what we're thinking is even to this point where now ecom is the standard with an AI on it's here, and so when how do we capture that data? Because most people who return stuff, they just return stuff, and you know how Amazon would have like, why did you return things? And it's a nuisance to customers because they don't want to have to fill it; they just want to return it and get done with it.
Sure.
So the data capturing of, okay, was it the size? Was it the quality? But for here, we're very meticulous in terms of the most people won't know is like they'll wear a shirt or jeans, you say in women's fashion, and everybody has different shapes and sizes. Every country has a different shape and size.
That's
And
true.
so if you're not, you can't create it one off for a specific person. You have to create it for the masses. And so one of our shirts where one of the seam on the side would tilt back and it felt like it was choking your neck, and it's like, okay, what do we adjust on the pattern? And this is these minor tweaks that people can't, I don't blame them because they're not, I didn't know, but these minor tweaks that brands, the bigger brands, they take into consideration. How does it fit on your hip? How does it fit on your waistline? Is it too big here? And so if you don't nail that part of it, I mean, you can have a superior product, but if it doesn't fit, it's not going to hit in the market.
Yeah. I like I like t-shirts and I like button-down shirts, but I like
Mhm.
button-down casual shirts that you can wear outside of, you don't have to tuck them in. And I found this one t-shirt that I had purchased by a big brand, and I loved it. It fit perfectly for me. So I looked at the model number and everything, and I called them up and I said, I can't find it anywhere. Where do I find it? And they told me, oh, that was, last year's and this is this year's. And so buy this. And I bought it. And it didn't fit the same. And I was disappointed about that. And then, same thing with button-down shirts that you can wear sort of casually. There was a great brand that started out, but every year the fit was almost different, and it's almost like you just have to constantly try on the shirts in order to do it. You can't just continue to buy the same shirt because they just fit differently. Like you said, everybody's tweaking it just a little bit, and that little bit makes a big difference.
Oh yeah, 100%. And that's another variable with this business is that when you're mass producing, like take for example, if you're in food and beverage, Mom's Kitchen, and they started out with this amazing ice cream. It tastes great in the kitchen. replicate that and scale that to 10,000 cups, see how it tastes.
Right.
And so that's the same thing that we're facing here is when you're reaching mass production, the cup might be a little bit different. So it's a hard thing to catch with quality control. Because you could check one or two pieces. You're not checking a million pieces.
No.
So, and the market will let you know if you're doing something wrong. But yeah, all those things. I mean, it is a massive headache on mass scale production. But it's something that everybody deals with. I promise you, the biggest companies in the world, they pay attention to that. Even as for the collar, color, fit, style. Okay, that's fine. But just the threading of it, the way it's stitched under a shirt. I have a shirt back here, but just the threading of how it's sewn in, it all matters. And I mean, the fashionistas will tell you even more. So they know more than I do, but they're very picky on judging a brand.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Now, are you manufacturing everything yourselves in California or?
No, so our business model is right now, so we buy U.S. cotton, and we're the single largest buyer of this 16 single thread yarn in the Western Hemisphere. And so we buy
Wow.
U.S. cotton, we'll ship it down to Central America. This is just for our shirts, and we'll knit, dye, cut and sew, package. And if we need to treat it, we'll treat it with garment dye, different products, and we'll ship it back to the States. Um, and as far as the outerwear stuff, that's all done in Asia, whether it's China, India, um, Korea. So it depends on what product it is, but the vertical chain is mainly on the shirts and hoodies.
Yeah, and that's done fairly locally, North America.
The manufacturing is done in Central America
Central
on the
America.
western side. We don't manufacture anything domestically just because the customers are sensitive to price point and it's hard to match that part of it. But if I had it my way, yeah, we would love to manufacture here. We've tried it, it just didn't the financial modeling didn't work out.
Yeah, we when we were in the fashion business, we were talking to the folks in New York, and nobody they were doing the patterns in New York, but even that was starting to be pushed out. So there was a time when there was a lot of manufacturing in New York for fashion, but
Yeah.
not so much anymore. Even shoes. So yeah, it is difficult. I Aside from the political side of it, I've always been a fan of domestic manufacturing only because of the turnaround time and the ability to, stay close. Like when we were in the shaving business, our product was manufactured in Tennessee, which was great because if we ran out, we could get it faster, right? If we're manufacturing overseas, it takes, like right now we have a client, they put something on the water that was supposed to arrive March 11th, and it took another 2.5 weeks past that, and so they were out of stock, and it was a big nightmare, And then
Yeah.
even once you get it here, just clearing the port, just clearing customs, just getting it in, and then the inspections and everything, it could lead to an extended time on that supply chain, which
Oh
all
yeah,
costs
yeah,
money.
100%. I mean, we still do deal with that. I mean, and you also, pe- I don't think people understand, even manufacturing in different countries, there is a political atmosphere there. And depending on what the government wants to do. And so now we see it right now with different terrorists, but there are strikes in different parts of Central America where workers can't go to work. We can't produce the goods. We can't even get it out. And um, but ideally, yes, I am a big fan of manufacturing domestically because in business sense, I mean, time is money, and
Yeah,
so we're paying for that 3 months lead time of not having fast turnaround, and thus you have to carry a ton of inventory. I mean, if you saw our warehouses, we're building out a new facility right now because we outgrew both LA and Houston, but it's a very capital. driven. This inventory business is not for the faint of heart here.
Yeah. Yeah, and you want to optimize your inventory because you're bringing in, this freight coming in from overseas. It's costing you money, so the more you can put on there, the lower the cost per unit.
Right.
So because there's certain things that are fixed, certain amounts of that shipping costs that are fixed. You're going to pay it no matter what. So, yeah, it's incredible. And then if you get stuck and you have to air freight something in, forget it. It's your cost is out of control.
Oh
So,
yeah, been there, done that, Phil. Still doing it. I mean, if that's what happens when you miss forecast, stuff happens. You have to air freight it, and you're losing money on a product you promised a customer. It happens all the time.
yeah, yeah. And then on top of that part of it, right? You just brought up a great point because you've got customers out there. So then on top of all the other headaches of designing, manufacturing, getting the product in, now you've also got to sell it. So you're not selling. Your primary channel isn't direct to consumer. Your primary channel is selling to retailers, correct?
Yep. Yep.
you know and then that means that you've got to have a sales team that's going out there showing them, bringing them new items. They're either going to like it, not like it, and that's a whole different aspect of it.
Geez, Phil, you're making my business sound really hard. It is all of that plus more. But yeah, I guess at the end of the day, people don't really care about how you make it. They just want the product at that time. And I think with Amazon is people are so spoiled in that they want it
Sure.
next day. They want it same day. They want it the next hour. And how do you keep up with those demands? And so we're constantly innovating, constantly trying to figure out how technology plays into the business, how to speed things up. Because I tell you, making a great product and knowing the market's one thing, but delivering it fast is a whole nother game.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I remember a few years ago, I guess maybe it was 10 years ago by now, but there was this whole push towards, there were a couple of startups that came out where you were going to order the product, they were going to manufacture it to your specifications, right? And then they were going to deliver it to you. And, in theory, I get it, right? In theory, and you can use AI and there was one company, I think it was out of Japan, that you could I forget exactly how it worked. I think it was with your camera and an app, and you used it, and it took your body and it basically did the measurements, and then you ordered it, and it came. Unfortunately, it didn't always work out the way in theory that it was supposed to. But
Yeah.
I remember there was several startups that began that way, and you say to yourself, okay, I can understand that model, but I think in theory it works, but I don't think in practicality that it actually ever amounted to anything. Basically, manufacture on demand or print on demand, just like we do with books.
Right. 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 Yeah.
You know, I mean, there are people doing it with T-shirts, but you're basically buying like a stock T-shirt, and then they're printing whatever you want on demand. So
Correct. Yeah.
yeah, um, yeah. The other piece that I thought was interesting about the business that you're in is that, and this was speaking from uh, another group that was doing fashion in a different way, is that there's a core of production items, right, that you produce that really don't in some ways don't change, or you just tweak them a little bit, such as you know uh, let's just use Under Armour for example. They've got their sweat wicking shirts, right? Blue, black, white, red, and those sort of become a mainstay and never really change. Maybe every year you might change the fabric, or you might change some aspect of it. What percentage of your business do you think is sort of a mainstay item, like outerwear maybe, or a leather jacket which has longevity?
Yeah, good question, Phil. The core items remain relatively the same. In that, if you were to go to an ice cream shop, I keep referring to ice cream.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you were to go to an ice cream shop, you have the chocolates and the vanillas and the strawberries. Those are your standard. And I think roughly around, probably, if I looked at the last numbers, is probably around 40%, 30% is core staple items. And then the rest of it, we're kind of teetering with, kind of saying, you know what trends are coming, what's going to hit. And that's more of on the research and development side. But I would say, you know what, maybe I might be underestimating. Probably around 50% of it is probably our core item, which we're lucky to have because, with the core items, there's not that much, the fluctuations are minimal there. Don't get me wrong, we still have to tweak a couple things, but it's not like a full on new product that we're developing.
Yeah. Now, when you come out with new items, right? Uh, do you have samples that you go around and you sell to you show to your prospective retailers, or do you manufacture first and then bring it to them and say, "Hey, look, we developed this new jacket."
No, we're not that smart here. We're not. You kind of introduced me as this fashionista person, fashion, whatever. I'll be honest with you. My brother on the Los Angeles side of it handles more of the fashion stuff, and so what he will do is, and we're getting old too. So back in the days, we were like, what is? I don't even know this whole TikTok thing anymore, and I don't know what influencer or what, and what music, and all of these are trends, and so uh, now we have to hire these young guns to tell us how to dress, and so I we'll research the market, we'll see what's selling, and we'll bring over concepts from Korea, let's just say, or Japan or something. And fashion on both ends of the spectrum in terms of our nation is you got New York, East Coast, and you got California. And then whatever's going in, it funnels in.
Yeah.
So uh, once we find a product that we like, or we think that we can sell, that's kind of fits our brand, is we'll develop that, and then uh, we'll we'll develop that first, and then we'll test it out, and then we'll mass produce it. But there are very, I don't know, where I wouldn't say there's too many times where we say, "Oh my gosh, let's just create this shirt," and that's nobody has made before. I think we're just kind of recycling and seeing what caters to the market.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a tough thing to do, I think, is
Yeah,
try to be the trend setter.
correct.
That's more for the designers and we worked with a guy named Nick Varios
Uh-huh.
who was on Project Runway. He was a fashion designer, and he was always trying to push the envelope. The Alexander McQueens of the world, and those guys.
Yes,
That's a
yes.
whole different. That's a whole different segment of fashion, and that's not something that's an art form and unto itself. But
Yeah.
um, no, but I had a conversation with a guy who's got a men's brand, and he was saying, he was in the business for a long time, and he was saying, it was too difficult to try and figure out, trends and what's happening. He said, and so I transitioned my business to doing uh, products that men are always going to want. Said, they're always going to want a leather jacket. They're always going to want this, outerwear. They're always going to want these types of pants, this type of boot. And that's sort of what he focuses on, because he said, I can't focus on that setting of trends. He said, because
Yeah.
it's too difficult to be, to be out there looking at it.
Well, sometimes, Phil, though, certain items have come on the market and it was just the wrong timing, or wasn't marketed properly, or
Right.
that it didn't suit the brand. And sometimes in our line of businesses, there are times where, actually it happens more often than not, there's a lag time. So we'll introduce a product, and then once we introduce a product, we won't get a fast response. So how do we gauge, is this product a success or not? And we'll give it, and for one of our best selling shirts is the garment dye shirts. And so when we created that, it took roughly around 9 months for the market to adopt. Think about 9 months worth of inventory that didn't sell. We had to beg people to buy it. Now it's flying off the shelf. So it is all, it is timing, and it, you have to kind of, in that sense, there's early adopters,
Yeah,
um, but those are far and few between. And so marketing to the masses with a newer product, it's always a challenge, even though it's recycled fashion. Um, FYI, everything is recycled.
yeah, at
Whatever
some
you're
point.
seeing right now, it's been done in the past. We're just, you're too young or too old to remember.
Yeah.
That's what it is. Yeah.
Well, you were just, it's funny, you were saying, I don't know the trends. I don't even understand TikTok anymore and all that. And it's the same for us. Like we have an agency and we're managing people's accounts and doing all kinds of things. And I have to keep hiring younger people who come in and understand exactly what's happening because, I understood social media, 5 years ago, 10 years ago. Today, it's completely different. The algorithms change, everything changes. And, sort of the same in fashion or any product. Actually, you were talking about timing. I mean, you start to see these trends, and sometimes the trends pop up really fast on social media, and then they blow out, and people are scrambling for inventory, and then the next thing you know, it dies. A good one were those cups that people were using a couple of years, like 2 years ago. There was these cups that nobody could keep in stock, and then people were trying to jump on them, and then all of a sudden it just teetered off.
Was it Stanley Cups
Yeah,
that?
Stanley, that's it.
Okay. So we did a case study in our summit, and Stanley went from, they're a 100-year-old company, by the way.
Yeah,
And by the way, this type of business, I mean, there are businesses that has been around for decades, and Stanley, I think their growth spurt was insane. I think
yeah,
during that time period, it went from like $70 million in revenue all the way on up to like 800 million somehow. First off, I'm wondering how in the world did they scale that? What type of
yeah,
manufacturing capacity that they had? But yeah, I mean, it goes viral and then all of a sudden it dies down and then sometimes it picks back up. So it's a bunch of calculated risks that any entrepreneur takes in the product life cycle.
yeah,
Um, and hey, who knows? Maybe AI is smart enough to predict the next fashion wave or the stock market. I'm not sure. But for right now, we are kind of looking at things and researching and taking feedback, and we're still in work in progress. And that, I think that's the hardest, just to be forward thinking, but not too forward thinking where it ties up all your capital, all your money.
yeah.
Yeah.
We use AI a lot for different things, but ideation and stuff. And we've tried numerous times to say, what do you think is going to happen with this? What do you think? And AI will come back and tell you, we don't know. We really don't know. But what's funny is in a different category, in the food category, we had a client who is a small PE private equity guy, and he buys small brands. And we were handling his marketing, building his websites, and all that stuff. And there was this product that came out on TikTok. I think it was about 4 years ago. It was called Pink Sauce, and it exploded. For some reason it just exploded, and he scrambles and cuts a deal with them and to manufacture this because he had several food brands and he was in the sauce business. Cuts a deal, goes to the manufacturer, gets it all together. It's going to take 6 or 7 months. Walmart says we want it. You know, by the time the product comes in, we're talking 6 or 7 months later, the product comes in, nobody cared. It was over. It was that flash in the pan and then it was done. And, the poor guy lost, I don't know, so a lot of money, millions, a couple of
Yeah.
millions on it. So,
It's the nature of the game, and I think it happens not even just fashion, but any product based company.
yeah,
It happens. 1 minute it's here, 1 minute it's gone. You can't deliver on time, so there's a small window on delivery, and if you miss that, if you're too early, it costs you. If you're too late, it costs you. And so balancing that is tough, and that's another portion of the business that we always have to be uh, more. And the thing about us, Phil, is with retail brands, you have 10,000, 5,000 piece runs. With us, we're an inventory based business.
Yeah.
So customers expect us to have inventory. So we're not just taking a 10,000 piece gamble. We're taking 100,000 piece, 500,000 piece gamble on a singular product that we don't know for sure it's going to sell. And I tell you, I think that's the story of my life. Is just in order to sustain any type of business and keep the growth rate up, is that, I mean, you gotta have some courage to stick it
Yeah.
out. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So let me ask you a question on a different subject. You got a great education, Harvard, and then University of Chicago, MBA, and I understand, and I agree with you. I have an MBA in finance and marketing, but you know, and believe me, what I learned from doing business or from trial and error in business and success and failure, I couldn't learn in school. But I do think that there were things I learned in an MBA program about that I think helped me in business, finance, how to understand some things, how to calculate some things. I don't think marketing, in my opinion, I didn't learn anything in marketing that was useful. Finance, definitely, and some other things, supply chain and pieces like that. What are your thoughts on that? Do you think that getting an MBA from a place like University of Chicago um, was beneficial in the way that you think about business and the way that you strategize about business? Or do you think that it was just everything that you've learned from being on the job?
Well, so let me clarify is that the MBA I start this year. So I haven't completed the MBA. I had to defer, and so I can't tell that to you explicitly in saying is an MBA worth it. Now, what I can tell you, because I do have, uh, I'm associated with Harvard MBA, Stanford MBA, Wharton. I mean, you name it over there, and it took me a while to make a decision because it is a time commitment. In that I'm interviewing these people. These are people that have run anywhere from $100 million in organization all the way to $2 billion.
Sure.
What is it that you're taking? And all of them say inevitably the same thing: is there is no substitute for real life. And so the only reason why I'm going back is to tell my son that he needs to go to school. Uh, but the other thing is mainly for what am I missing here? And a lot of people say, "Hey, Eugene, you should be teaching that class." But should I? Because I had to learn things the off way. I didn't learn things by the books. And if it gives your audience any hope, when I think I don't know, I remember telling somebody this story, is that people were they would drive these nice cars and they would be in their three-piece suits, and like, I'm a banker. I said, like, what bank do you work for? And they would mention, it's Goldman or something. I didn't even know who these people were.
Yeah.
So it's like, are you a teller? Are you like a manager at a bank? Like, how do you make all this money? It's like, no, 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 no. I'm in investment banking. I was like,
Yeah.
what does investment banking do?
Right.
And I had no idea what bankers do. I still don't, Phil. Private equity, venture capital, raising capital on the debt side, on leveraging companies. I didn't know all this stuff, so I had to learn this stuff by asking questions.
Sure.
And in the beginning, I was so embarrassed not to know this because I was in a room full of people. I'm like, nowadays there's no shame in asking. Ask
No.
away. Like,
Yeah.
I don't know everything, Phil. I will never know everything, but I will. I can't guarantee that I'm going to try and find out what I don't know. And so I think the MBA structures, from what I'm hearing from my mentors and people that have done it and that are envious of my position,
Yeah.
is that, Eugene, nobody's going to tell you how to become an entrepreneur. In fact, they'll
No.
give you tools and you'll gain some good networks. But yeah, you might learn time costs money. You might learn a little bit of statistics, how to apply that to business, how to price model. But you're not going to learn the intricate details of human nature, of dealing with people, of people building a team, leadership, until you're in the business. So I mean, yeah, in short, I could tell you that I could circle back with you around 2 years from now. I'll tell you if it's worth it.
Yeah. I thought it was worth it only because I founded my first business after college, and it was a disaster. And it wasn't a disaster because it was a bad business model. It was a disaster because of me. I was just a bad leader and I was a bad process manager at the time. And it wasn't working for me. And I ran the business for about 4 years. And finally I said, there's something wrong. And I sold the business, and then I went back to graduate school. And it took, I would say it took me a good 2 years to really understand where I went wrong. Because at first I was like, oh, the people, it was the this, it was the that. I was blaming everybody but myself. And then I remember like one of my last classes where the light bulb went off and I was like, oh, it's me, it was me. And, and then I wound up investing in a retail chain in Washington D.C., and it was there that I really learned. I had a really great mentor, and I really learned how to um, manage people, how to lead people, how to manage process, and I thought that was really that's to me is the key to business, is really managing process and leading people. And then I was lucky enough or fortunate enough to work on um, raising capital for that company and taking the lead in that. And that was that opened up a whole different world. I had no idea about, private equity, venture capital, how things worked. And I'm putting this book together to go out and raise, we were raising like $25 million for this business. And I'm sitting in this room with all these guys talking about numbers. And I'm thinking, this is amazing. But that's how business, I walked away from that going, this is how business is really done, so.
Phil, had I known that probably 5, 6 years ago, I'm pretty sure we'd be 10 times the size we are. I'm not. I don't want to sound ungrateful or anything, but yeah, I think that when you're first starting, knowing these things, I didn't even know that you can sell portions of the business.
Oh yeah.
That I didn't even know what stocks, bonds, what debt. I didn't know any of this stuff.
Yeah.
And so I will be talking to my accountants, now lawyers and bankers. And it's like, I didn't know you could do that. I mean,
Yeah.
my dad was in commercial real estate. I was like, are you telling me you could sell half of a building? Like, is that how it works? What are you talking? A quarter of a building? How does that even work?
Yeah.
Uh,
Sale leasebacks. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, exactly. So all these different structures, leveraged buyouts, all these fancy terminology, that stuff. I mean, with AI out there, if you want it bad enough, you can learn all that stuff. But that is very important stuff to learn.
Well, you can learn it, but and I do help. I coach a lot of young entrepreneurs, and I do focus. Everybody wants to raise capital, but there's a specific way to raise capital
Correct.
correctly, and you can learn how to raise capital on AI, but you're not going to learn how to raise capital correctly and
Correct.
from the correct people. So,
Yeah.
um, yeah. Hey, Eugene, it was a great discussion. I really, really appreciate you coming on and talking about your business. I think it was great. It was a lot of fun. I think people have got a lot out of this. So again, I really appreciate you taking the time to really share with us. It was fantastic.
Yeah, pleasure's mine, Phil. I hope, yeah, people took something away from um, fashion, ice cream, and some money talk there. But anytime I can help, and I appreciate what you do, because I think that with the information out there, um, not a lot of people do what you do in terms of interviewing, getting it to the masses, and getting the access to the information. Because I didn't have anything. I didn't know where to look, and so I respect what you're doing here.
Yeah, I appreciate that. And I hope that the viewers appreciate that. They seem to, because we keep building an audience, and again, we try and give people a real understanding, like you did today, of really all the pieces that go into to a business. And so, how do people see your products? Where do they go? ShakaWear.com.
Yeah, shakaware.com is the web page. There are different distributors out there, retail chain outlets, but shakaware.com was probably the main place you can go for the latest drops. Um, yeah.
Yeah. Again, thanks. I think that if you got value out of today's conversation, make sure that you subscribe to us, leave a review, share it with a fellow founder who needs to hear it, and you can check out Eugene and his team's work at shakaware.com. And until next time, stay focused, cut out the noise, and keep crunching your growth.